from our standpoint, or from my standpoint, I've heard this desktop appraisal is the way all appraisals were going to go across the board.
I think they like that because it takes so long to get an appraiser out there. I mean, I know you guys are waiting forever for some of us. So
we are.
It's a struggle.
Sometimes 3-4 weeks.
Yeah,
and then you got another week to 10 days before the appraisal's turned in, and you're
See,
like,
and I don't get that mentality either.
That's past my closing date.
It always is interesting to me that the appraisal is the last part of the puzzle, considering the whole thing depends on it, the value that comes out of it. So,
agreed.
But then, to hear 4 weeks from somebody, I won't even accept an appraisal unless I can turn it in within 2 weeks. I just won't accept it. I just let it pass on. So maybe that's why everybody else is so busy, but I'm not at 2 weeks right now.
Well, I think it also has a lot to do with which lender is chosen. Because for me, the lenders that I recommend to my clients are ones that they come to me with. I'm right up front. I'm like, hey, the minute inspections are done, I need you to order appraisal. And that also means not taking that full 10 days to do those inspections.
Right.
Get them done day 2 or 3. So day 4, you can be like, hey, Mr. Lender, order appraisal. If you wait till day 12, day 10 or 12 to order the appraisal, us as realtors don't have a right to be upset that the appraisal didn't come back in before closing.
Well, and I think, the struggle is anytime you were talking about AMCs earlier and the ones that sort of, they auction appraisals, essentially the lowest bidder wins. The local lenders, the folks that have been here forever, everybody knows their name and everybody knows where they're working and everything else. They all use local AMCs who have that preferred list, and they stay on that preferred list. So you get people who are knowledgeable in the marketplace. If you go to, somebody that you're seeing advertise as a mass loan company on TV, or somebody that you dug up online because you think they have the
best rate or
whatever the case is, they're always going to go through an AMC that doesn't have any local connections. And when they use those folks, they're going to end up getting the lowest bidder, which means the people that don't have the experience to land the better clients.
Right. So. Kind of goes back to the you get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And use a local lender.
And I mean,
well, I always say that.
I always say that too.
And to be completely honest, if there's an appraiser that picked up a loan we're going to throw random numbers out there, for $300, right? Versus an appraiser that he may be getting $700 or $800, chances are you're getting a better job at that higher bracket than the...
Well, it's somebody that's trusted. They're willing to part with a little more money. Now, don't kid yourself. When it says $800 or $900 on your closing statement, I don't get all that money. That's what the AMC does, is they rake a certain amount of money out of that. So my fee hasn't gone up that much, although it has to now that the cost of doing business is getting so ridiculous. But
what would you say is the average cost for a good appraisal right now?
I think
with a local person that's...
Yeah, if you really want somebody good, the actual appraiser probably makes between $650 and $750. And then there's anywhere from a $50 to $150 to, in some cases, $200 rake on it from the AMC.
So we're seeing in probably your $850 for what an appraisal is going for right now. Okay.
And of course it varies on what type of appraisal, because if you add rent schedules and those types of things, those cost more. But yeah.
So is there anything as a home seller that they can do that will help their home look better? Or
I get that question a lot,
because at the end of the day you are the check and balance of what everybody before you does.
I think the number one thing that's most important for homeowners to help the value of their home is proper maintenance on a regular basis. It's not so much remodeling your kitchen or your bathroom. You can do that and it will add value, but if you have something that's broken, that costs you real money at closing. Because when you go into and have your home inspection, the guy comes back or the gal comes back with a big long list, and you got to fix all that stuff. And that stuff costs you money. If you'd have maintained that along the way, you wouldn't have that problem. And then your sales price would be your sales price, and you wouldn't feel like you were coughing up $10,000 right before closing to fix all the problems with the house. So that's the number one thing, because anything broken is much more detrimental to your value than anything you might add. So
that's a great point. So
it is.
If you just handle the maintenance items as they come up or maintain them so it doesn't become an issue, then you're not going to get that large ticketed item at the end.
And I think it makes your house more sellable from you guys' perspective. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been to a house where you got the key out of the lockbox, and you put in the key, and you went to do it, and then you couldn't get the door open, and you spend 10 minutes at the door there because the proper maintenance on the lock. I mean that.
It's like throw some WD-40 in it, please.
It's a
or just change
$40 knob.
Exactly.
Right.
And you may have just cost that person a sale because the person didn't want to stand there. They're like, okay, well, what else is wrong with this place? You know?
And that legitimately happens.
It does legitimately happen.
Sliding glass doors are another thing. Windows are another thing. You know, clean those tracks out. Make sure they slide smoothly because there's nothing worse than going to the back door, going to open it up, and you're like, you know, and you're trying
That's why I hire a maid so she cleans all that for me.
It's a silly little thing, but it turns people
It's
off
true.
when you're going through houses. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, that's not a value impact, but it's certainly a sellability situation.
Well, it makes you wonder, like, if you go to open up a door or a window or whatever, and there's like, you know, 3 years of pet hair and,
Yep.
you know, the
and
back
let's face it, it's the Tri-Cities, dust.
and dust, you know.
You know,
So, it's,
for sure.
because it makes you wonder, like, what else have they not?
Yeah, you
Done.
pull open a cabinet door and it falls off in your hand. You know, all these things have happened to me too. So
Yeah. I mean, you know, from a real estate.
that's really disconcerting when you're an appraiser and you're like, whoop.
And then you're like, oh no, did I break it?
Yeah, did I break that or did somebody set me up?
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we've all ran into that situation a time or two.
I mean, because people open drawers.
They do.
And
I
they
mean,
should.
yeah.
They're buying the house. I mean, you're going to spend $500,000-$600,000. You better make sure it's all working properly.
Right. So tell us the funniest thing you've ran into.
Oh, I don't know that I can do that.
Appropriately
Yeah, I was
funny.
going to say let's filter that a bit.
PG.
You know, not so much funny. You see eccentric stuff all the time. People that have decorated their houses in certain ways or have certain personal eccentricities or whatever. But you know, really the better stories are the ones where I used to do foreclosures. You know, early on, back when everything was a foreclosure, and just some of the horrible things that the way people leave their houses. You know, I don't know. There was a house that we did that it was up in Yakima, and the homeowner had completed they enclosed a carport to make it a family room, and it just had that corrugated plastic ceiling, so it was almost like a solarium, and it had cracked and had been sitting empty all winter long, and there was carpet on the floor, so it had been dripping down through this, and now it was spring and it was starting to warm up, and there was this beautiful patch of mushrooms growing right out of the middle of the carpet. And you know,
Not the edible kind.
yeah, or any of the good kinds. But yeah, it just was. You see those things and you just sort of chuckle to yourself. But we saw a foreclosure that the hot water heater, and they did this on MythBusters too, by the way. There's a relief valve, and once it gets to a certain pressure, it blows all the steam out of it. Well, the relief valve had been tampered with.
Okay.
And so the bottom of the water heater had blown out, and it had shot through the ceiling, and there was like a cartoon hole in the roof of the house.
Oh my goodness.
And the water heater was laying out in the front yard. So, again, you know, you see all sorts of fun stuff when you're doing foreclosures. So,
Wow.
I would love to have seen that.
yeah, well, I'm pretty sure they burned that house down because it had some other issues too. It broke a bunch of the trusses as it went out, and the roof had
Oh, I'm
actually
sure.
collapsed.
Could you imagine
So.
No.
the noise that it would have to
yeah.
make?
Yeah, and it was one of those where like a center pivot, you know, crop, and then so it has the corners, and the parcels are square. So the triangular corners, it was like a farmhand's house on the corner of a center pivot, and was just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, and it didn't have a septic system or sewer system. It had what's called a cesspool or cesspit.
Oh.
So, which was another first for me. I was like, I've never seen that before. Of course, you know, 150 years ago when this house was built, probably perfectly acceptable.
Absolutely.
Not
Right.
today's.
Yeah,
Not today's
Today's
standards.
standard, well, you know, that was the least of the concerns, considering there was a giant hole in the roof. But
This is
yeah.
true.
And the water heater's sitting in the front yard. So.
Yeah, but
Right.
that's what you get when you get foreclosures. So it's, you know, it's remaining value on the home.
Yeah.
But that's
It's interesting.
those are the good stories, the ones that I can tell anyway.
Well, I think with that.
With that, so before we let you go, is there anything else that you think either the home seller, the buyer, the realtor should know?
One of my personal things these days is that you have to remember that the appraisal is a piece of the puzzle and that you have a signed contract. So even if the appraisal comes in beneath the sales price, and I don't say low because market value is market value, sales price is sales price. They're not the same thing. Even if the appraised value is below the sales price, this buyer is still contractually bound to buy the home. So the renegotiation there is not 100% leverage, because in most multiple offer situations you have alternates. And so realistically, when there are struggles with that, I counsel realtors with this all the time. You have a lot of leverage as the seller's realtor to say, well, came in at $599, sales price is $605. Will that be cash or check? Because you can always go to the next person, and any good deal, and as you guys know, any deal like that, you got to be willing to walk away from the table.
Right. Are you seeing a lot of the low appraisal addendums in these contracts?
I see them in there, but I don't really. I'm not quite sure.
Because I know that it doesn't affect like what you do, like your.
Yeah,
I
don't study it. Let's put it that
right.
way. It's, oh, look, there it is, and then we move on. And
right.
Because again, sales price is just a piece of the puzzle, but you can always tell when there's multiple offers on a property. I mean, you should be able to tell just from the listing data.
Right.
Whether it's written there or not. There's it's 2 days on market and the contract price is $10,000 over list. There's a good chance you had multiple offers. So yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming.
Absolutely, it's
and
been
letting us pick
very
your brain.
Yeah, hopefully I shared something of value.
I think you did.
Lots of value.
Absolutely.
So. Well, we appreciate you guys all tuning in, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to Kim or I, and we would love to help you.
Thank you.